Hey, this is Evan Longoria of your San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Let's go, Giants! With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast. Standing on time, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down, falling on. We're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Friday, June 22nd, 2018, and this is episode 145 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, on this wonderful Friday afternoon. It's hot here in Gilroy, California. How hot is it there in Georgia, Eric?
I think it's just about the same hotness. Our feels like is at 104, so I feel your pain.
Okay, we're not quite there because we don't have the humidity. It's about 94 here, but we're dry, so it probably feels like 94. But it's still hot. It's still hot. Yeah. Hey, by the way, have you ever dealt with Yellow Jackets? I was thinking about Georgia Tech and Joey Bart, and then the Yellow Jackets, and then my recent problem. I know my brain works in weird ways. We have a Yellow Jacket nest that's being built in our roof through these little vent holes, and so I was Googling and YouTubing ways to deal with them because I didn't want to pay an exterminator $400 or whatever to deal with it. I can't get to the nest because it's inside the roof. It's unbelievable. It's a total redneck way of dealing with this, but I love it. I take my shop vac and put about 2 or 3 inches of soapy water in the bottom, and then I duct tape the hose from the vacuum up to the entrance of their nest, and then when they become active in the mid-morning, to early afternoon, I fire that sucker up for a few hours, and almost every yellow jacket that is flying back to the nest gets sucked in, and almost every yellow jacket that's coming out gets sucked in. So it's a slow process of attrition, but it's automated. You just walk away. You go back in the house. You let it go for hours. And so I did it for the first time 2 nights ago. I only ran it for 2 hours, and I caught 114 yellow jackets.
That's ingenious.
It was amazing. And so as we speak right now, because I couldn't run it yesterday because I was at work, I am running it right now, and it's a very hot day. So they're super active. So when I went out to go fire it up, there were already about a dozen yellow jackets kind of swarming around the vacuum nozzle, because yellow jackets apparently don't like the color black, which I didn't know until doing some more research. So they're seeing this thing that's kind of this little intruder by their nest, and it's black, and they're just like, hey. You could tell they were checking it out and kind of hovering around. I turned that sucker on, and it was like, zoom.
That's satisfying, I'm sure.
Oh, it was very satisfying. Very satisfying. I haven't been stung yet, so it's been a wonderful thing. But sorry for that aside. We are in the summertime now, folks. It is the second full day of summer, the second longest day of the year, behind yesterday, and the Giants are actually not doing too bad. It's been a while since we recorded. We apologize for that. We've had quite a few life moments happen. We usually try to record on Mondays. We had Memorial Day. Unfortunately, my dog of 14 and a half years passed away, and that kind of threw a wrench into things. We had Eric's car break down before we were recording.
Transmission blew on my car. Yeah.
It's been bad. It's been bad, guys. So sorry. It's been a little bit of life getting in the way. But and then a hair appointment for my wife. But that's okay. Things like that happen. We are back. We're going to get back on our weekly schedule. But the Giants have not let us down. It looked like they were for a while there, until most recently. But hey, look, the Giants have been 9-8 since we last recorded. That's okay. Madison Bumgarner has returned. They are now 38-38, exactly 500, 4 games back of Arizona, 2.5 games back of LA in third place. So we're kind of where we left them 3.5 weeks ago, right, Eric?
Yeah, they're pretty much at the same place, except LA has switched places with Colorado as the team between them and Arizona.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Yep. I mean, Dodgers taking 2 of 3 last weekend kind of bumped them, because if the Giants had taken 2 of 3, the roles may be reversed right now.
Yeah, it'd be 3 for the Giants and 3.5 for LA. So yeah, they would be a half game ahead of LA right now.
Yeah. Still, though, it was winning that final game of the road trip. They had that road trip that we didn't even, like you said, we were away for, where they went to Washington, Miami. Oh, that horrible series in Miami. And then L.A. The one thing they did manage to do was have a happy flight every time. So I give the Giants credit for winning the final game of every series, even though against Miami and L.A. they couldn't win any of the other games, and it took 16 innings to beat the crappy-ass Marlins.
Yeah, they were not swept, but and they did have some fight and some moxie to try and avoid those sweeps. But it really was frustrating because we're talking about the lowly Marlins, and I mean overall they ended up going 3-4 against them so far, and they started 0-3. So you can kind of argue, well, they're 3-1 against them, right? Since that start, so that's okay. But those 3 losses, the Marlins just kept coming back. The Giants could have won all 3 of those games. And then, of course, the first game back at home on this homestand in which they had a 2-run lead in the 9th, and they blew that one. They did end up winning the next 2 subsequent games, and then the first one against San Diego last night. So they've won 3 in a row, 4 out of the last 5. They're 500. So everything's kind of righting itself. This is the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of baseball. From one night you're like, that's it, they're never going to win again, to suddenly they've won 3 in a row. So the Giants have shown some resolve, because a loss like that first one against Miami really could have put them on their asses, but they responded in a really good way, winning these 3 in a row.
Especially after coming off that road trip, losing that first game on Monday in such heartbreaking fashion, it was like, oh no, here we go again. And they've just shown the last, and they get contributions from everywhere. These last few days that they've gotten these wins, it's not just like Posey carrying them or Belt carrying them. And that's the nice thing to see with this team, is that they're finally getting that kind of stuff together. Because that series against Washington, where they took 2 out of 3, it was kind of like, all right, things are back on track. And then
they beat Max Scherzer.
Yeah, and then they blew 8
incredible.
Leads in 3 games against Miami.
Yeah,
8 leads.
That's the problem, is that they just, and they were talking about it, even in the games that the last 2 games the Giants won, both games they had significant leads in which Miami started chipping away. And I was listening to those games, and to hear both John Miller and Dave Fleming go, and here come the Marlins again. Wow, these guys are remarkable. Every single game the Giants have had a lead, they keep coming back, and it's true. It happened with that Monday night game, and then in the next 2 games, the Marlins made it a very, very close game, including that last one where they barely won 6-5. So the Marlins have shown a lot of resolve, too, for being a last-place team. But that said, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the score is. The Giants won those games. They're 500. They're still in the hunt, and I thought this was interesting. I knew that their road record was horrible and their home record was pretty good, but why don't you tell them how bad and how good they are?
Oh my God. Well, here's the thing. They have played 42 games on the road already and only 34 games at home. So that's a positive going forward, because on the road, they've gone 16-26 over those games. And then they flip it around at home. They're 22-12, which is the second best home record in the NL by win percentage, 1 percentage point behind the Phillies, who are 24-13 at home. And, it's all the best teams in the National League all have these, good home records. Atlanta's 21-13. The Cubs are 21-14. Arizona's 23-16. And the Giants are 22-12. So they're kind of hanging there. And they have this stretch. I wrote it down lower, but they have this stretch coming up of 20 out of 26 games at home leading into the All-Star break. Yeah. So they've managed to kind of wade through the quagmire of 3 different 3-city road trips. And yeah, being 10 games under 500 isn't what you want, but they have managed to balance it out by the way they've played at home, and now they have a chance to kind of take off from this point. It's funny because they're like such a different team on the road. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but they score less on the road, I think, than at home.
It's interesting because a lot of people point to that road record and go, oh my gosh, if they were just a little bit better, they'd be in first place right now or close to first place. And it's like, that is true. But 2 things can be true. The other thing that I think is true is this team is not a juggernaut. This team is not the 1993 Giants, right? It's not the 2012 Giants. It's not the team that's going to run away with it. It's not the LA Dodgers of the last 4 or 5 years. It's not the Washington Nationals or Chicago Cubs of the last couple of years. Are they playoff potential? Yeah, they are. But they're not a juggernaut. So the fact that they have the second best home record in the NL, I think, is also outperforming their expectation. right? So
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of even it out, where I think the road record is underperforming, but I think the home record is outperforming. So I think they kind of balance each other out a little bit. And I do think at this point they really are about a 500 team. I think with the way they've played does dictate about a 500 record. That said, they're not even halfway through the season. And now that they've got Bumgarner back and Cueto's coming back maybe in 3 weeks, Shark's coming back in maybe a week or two, hopefully they can start stabilizing this pitching rotation, which has really been their weakness so far. And we'll get into those stats later. I'm just really hoping that last night's gem, and we'll get into it right now, by Madison Bumgarner is kind of the turning point for not only him, but maybe the Giants.
Yeah, it was funny. I watched that this morning because to celebrate the summer, I drank all day yesterday and fell asleep before the game. And I woke up this morning. I already knew the score was 3-0, but like the way they won that game last night, it was old school Bumgarner type victory. He didn't get a lot of run support. The Giants were facing the other team's number one starter in Tyson Ross. They scratched across 1 run, which Bumgarner helped with his sacrifice fly. Right. And he pitched phenomenally last night. He used his cutter, his curve, his slider, his fastball, all to perfection. They were talking about it. The Padres are used to him pounding the zone with fastballs, and he only threw like a third of his pitches were fastballs last night.
Yeah.
And it showed the kind of team that the Giants need to be to keep this going. Scoring the 2 more insurance runs in the 8th inning, that was another positive. They need to play good defense. And since that Miami series, they seem to have gotten that back together again. And Bumgarner finally stepping up. Not that he didn't pitch well in his first few outings, but finally stepping up and having that Bumgarner game. Hopefully that will impact the rest of the rotation and the dominoes will keep falling.
Well, one thing I noticed, and I was I didn't quite have time to go into some of the pitch velocity statistics that you can research these days, where you can look at individual starts by pitchers and look at their average velocity for fastballs and all the other pitches, right? Sliders and changeups and curveballs. What I did notice, and what other people noticed, including all the analysts, is that his last couple of starts, he had kind of lost control of the slider and velocity of the slider. So he was exclusively relying on the changeup as one of his out pitches. And his fastball was in, 90, 91 kind of category, where it's normally 92 to 94. And so they said, okay, that's a product of obviously him being on the DL, and he needs to get that back. He's basically going through his remnants of spring training right now, and hopefully he turns it around soon. I don't have the stats, so this is just my subjective analysis from watching just a few innings of the game and then watching the highlights, is that his slider was back on point, and it was much higher velocity than those last couple of starts. I mean, much higher as in 2 to 3 miles per hour, but kind of more closer to normal. And so it seemed to me as though he's regaining that strength and endurance and location for the slider, which, his changeup is great, but he was relying on it probably too much, and it certainly reduces the pitch selection and expectation for a batter. And they were jumping on some of his pitches last couple of games where they were hitting some bombs against him. Last night against the Padres, I know they're the Padres, whatever. Still, the point is that they're major league hitters. He just seemed to be having much more control and velocity on his slider as well as his other pitches.
Last night, he threw 8 innings pitched, which was the longest outing by a Giants pitcher this season.
Which is amazing, his 4th start.
Yeah, right? It's like he's going to throw a complete game in one of his next 3 starts. We can all see.
And he could have last night. He could have.
Yeah, I think so, too. I was watching, and I was like, I know he didn't come out, and I wondered if it was because of the runs, but there were handshakes after the 8th inning, so they already were going to take him out regardless, which I get it. He's on a pitch count.
He was over 100, yeah.
Right. I mean, he threw 104 in 6 innings the previous start, so I didn't feel like it was straining his arm, but I get the thought. But, I mean, he struck out 8 and only gave up 3 hits, and he walked 2. And one of them was late. It was in the 8th inning. He walked Will Myers on a 3-2 curveball that just completely missed the zone, and it was an easy take. But on the very next pitch, he got Hosmer to ground out to end the inning and end his night. And it just showed that that's part of what Bum brings to the table. He's not going to let the inning get away from him. Like, as much as I love Suarez and how he's been pitching, the other day he had it against the Marlins where he was dealing, but then there was that one inning where he kind of got rocky, and things snowball a little bit, and then finally gets out of the inning, and then he can get back to being comfortable. Bum has done a good job of not letting things get out of control, not letting base runners advance as much as they need to, and the Padres helped him out by getting thrown out at home on such a stupid send last
Well,
night.
he ran. No, he wasn't sent. He ran through that stop sign.
I should have said that. I was watching it live, quote unquote, this morning, and it was funny because the wife had just woken up and she was watching with me when that happened, and I'm like, "You got to stop that guy," and I'm like, "He just ran through a stop sign." 1 second later, Kruko, he just ran through a stop sign. It was just,
now I will say, he put one hand up, so he wasn't waving him. So it was still a stop sign, and the guy was an idiot. But I will say that most third base coaches will put two hands up, just to be more emphatic. But he just had his right hand up.
Well, yeah, he only put, I think it was his left hand because he was looking at the trail.
Maybe his left hand. His one hand, one hand was up.
To me, the third base coach, he only put the one hand up because he has a second runner to deal with behind him. So
that's true.
The left hand went to the close runner, and the right hand was focused on the other runner. And I think that's why he did it, which, I mean, I don't care if the Padres fix it, but they need to look at that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
but yeah, that was funny. I didn't see that live, but watching that on the replay and just watching him blow through the stop sign, it was like, you do realize the right fielder got that ball before you even were close to third? Like, you're going to be thrown out by a mile, dude. And it was like,
the moment Koch picked it up, I was like, oh, phew, they held it. They're going to hold the guy at third. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, what? Why is he still going? And yeah, you know, breaks like that, all the teams get breaks like that. And the Giants do stupid crap like that all the time too. You know, it's a matter of what situation is, and it's kind of tough when you have a relay of Gold Glover to Gold Glover to Gold Glover.
I know.
It's going to be hard to score,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was so nice. But like the key with the other thing about last night was Melancon.
Yeah,
Melancon got the first save in slightly over a year.
I went to Jurassic World with my daughter last night, so unfortunately I didn't see the end of the game because we were in the movie theater. But when we were coming home and I was listening to the post game and I heard that Bum went 8, and then Melancon got the save. I was like, whoa, Melancon got the save? Like, Bochy has been saying it's going to be Dyson and Watson to close out the games, but here comes Melancon. So, I mean, that's fine. He's been pitching really well. He just hasn't been able to go back-to-back days because of his stamina. But what I've seen of Melancon so far, I really do like, and I'm confident with him. I guess you do have to walk on eggshells with him because of the fragility of his physical endurance right now. But look, before last year, he was one of the most dominant closers in baseball. He had like the second most saves of the previous like 3 or 4 years. He had like the lowest whip. I mean, he's not a strikeout guy, but he really fools a lot of batters with his deception. And it's just that since he signed with the Giants, he's been bitten by the injury bug, which he's never been bit by before. So, hopefully this is an era where, he has a similar elbow issue with Matt Cain and all that. That doesn't flare up again. Unfortunately, we've talked about this before. It's going to happen again, Eric. This is a temporary respite. I really do believe it. I believe he's going to be okay for a few saves here and there and some spot holds, and then something's going to happen. He's going to get lit the crap up, and then suddenly he's on the DL again.
Well, Bochy did not stray from his statement that they're going to do this by committee. Mm-hmm. And I think that even showed last night because after Melancon gave up a base hit to lead off the inning, he sent Will Smith to the bullpen to start getting loose. And then Melancon was able to get rid of the next 3 batters on 10 pitches. And the day before that, he did the Watson-Dyson thing. And he was staying away from Watson and Dyson yesterday. He was giving them the day off, which is why Smith was the one that went down there. So I think any one of those 4 guys that I just mentioned, Smith, Melancon, Watson, Dyson, any one of them are going to get saves. Actually, Maranta got his first career save on, Wednesday.
Yeah, well, Maranta got the save because Dyson couldn't do it.
Right.
Dyson could not do it. He just gave up, hit after hit, and finally, with 2 outs, and the tying run I believe was on first at the time when it was 6-5. He had to pull him because Dyson just didn't have it, and he brought in Maranta and he got a save. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see by the end of the year how many individual pitchers are going to have saves because I think we already have 5 pitchers who have saves this year. I mean, it's been quite a spread, so. It's gonna be interesting. So
Watson, Dyson,
So let's go ahead and get into it. You put this down. The Adventures of Hunter Strickland. So I just want to start out.
To define that further. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I figured we had enough.
I want to let you take this, but I will say this: we've been talking. Sorry, I had a message there. We've been talking about this for more than a couple of years. How he's just a kind of a redneck guy, and he's a hothead, and he's got some raw skills and raw talent. But things like in the playoffs a few years ago, going fastball to Bryce Harper, challenging him, going, "I'm better than you," and Bryce Harper taking him deep more than once. And then him retaliating against that last year in May, which, of course, indirectly led to the end of Michael Morse's career because Strickland threw at Harper. The ensuing brawl, of course, Bum and Morse hit heads, and he has a concussion, and now he's riding tricycles with his kids, which is great. But at the same time, I love that guy. And to see that Hunter Strickland, indirectly ended his career really sucks. He said something, he's done some things which just... You want your closer to have a moxie. Don't get me wrong. You want your closer to have an edge. But to me, he is more of an edge than is beneficial in most situations. That said, what happened the other night really pissed me off. And I've still been behind Hunter Strickland most of this time, despite all of the negativity, even prior to this last debacle, from I shouldn't say all, some of the social media Giants fans that have always characterized him, just like they did with Santiago Casilla and others, as being the worst closer ever in the history of baseball. And when you really break down his statistics, like Castilla's statistics, they're not Mariano Rivera. No, they're not. But they're above average. They really are. And the jaded Giants fans, which are just used to winning these 3 championships in 5 years, just think that anything less than perfection you should get rid of. And that's just not the case. And so Hunter Strickland blows the save Monday night. 2-run lead. Unfortunately, he blew it. And it was lack of control. He had a couple of walks, which led to also, being off target for the hits that he gave up, including a couple of doubles. And he was pissed and he was pulled and he blew that save. Now, that was his 4th blown save of the year. That's a lot so far. It really is, considering the number of opportunities he's had. I will say this. 2 of those 4 blown saves are solo shots by Goldschmidt with a 1-run lead. And the 3 previous blown saves he had, the Giants won those games, right? So.
Yeah, except for one. Well, in Miami, Joe Panik dropped a pop-up that gave 2 runs.
Oh. Was that? Oh, I guess technically that was a blown save, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so. Basically, he's been off the hook for those 3.
Fault.
Yeah, exactly. So the 3 blown saves he's had, 2 of them they won. One of them was because of an error. So really, 3 of the blown saves up until that point, the Giants didn't lose because of him, or they won despite of him. This was the first loss directly attributable to Hunter Strickland. The first loss of the year. And Giants fans went apeshit. Unfortunately, I'll let you take over now. He went apeshit too.
Well, I mean, in the 9th inning, we all saw it. There was an encounter with, what is his name, Lewis Brinson, I think it is.
Brinson,
the kid on the
rookie.
Marlins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a rookie. And that, to me, is a key part of this whole thing that happened. The first pitch that Hunter threw to Brinson went up and in. And you just talked about it. Strickland had absolutely no control on Monday. We all could see it. And Brinson seemed to take umbrage, one of my favorite words, umbrage to the fact that, he came up and in on him. So when Brinson had his base hit, he slammed the bat down and celebrated hard. And then when Strickland was pulled from the game, he had more words for Brinson as he walked off. Instead of walking to the left side of the dugout, he walked past third base, which first bad decision by Strickland. He walked past third base so he could keep jawing with the kid. Even Bumgarner was drawing with the kid. And I got to be honest, I was with Strickland on this one. I really was. You are a rookie. The guy doesn't have any control, so he wasn't throwing at you. It wasn't an instance where he was trying to back you off the plate so he could do everything else. No, he literally didn't have control of the baseball. So there's no reason when this rookie gets this 190 hitting rookie gets a base hit, there's no reason to run down the line yapping back at Hunter Strickland. Because quite frankly, Strickland is the established veteran at this point. And this kid Brinson is just a kid. So I was totally with Hunter being pissed at that. I really was. Rookies need to know their place. And I know that sounds horrible, but you can't say anything unless you've done anything. And that one base hit is not him doing something. You're still hitting under 200. You're on the worst ball club in the league. Yay, good for you, buddy. That's your one shining moment. And I'm sure that's what Hunter and Bum were screaming at. Moment.
Sorry.
But the problem with all that, yeah, absolutely. I actually flashed the logo in my head when I said that. They've totally brainwashed us. But the thing that Hunter did that was even dumber was when he went into the tunnel, he punched a door with his pitching hand and became the third Giant this season to break his pinky.
Yeah.
And you know what? On that front, he deserves it. Because if you're going to be stupid enough to punch a door with your pitching hand, then you've shown that you are not mentally prepared for your role. And I give Strickland credit. He, over his 9 games before this blown save, and this includes the blown save in Miami because of the pop-up, but over his 9 games before that, he only allowed 6 hits, didn't allow a run, had a 194 batting average against. He had the strikeout, so he was taking care of business. And then to react like that, I mean, Bumgarner talked about it, and I was reading Baggerly's piece from yesterday's game. Bum's like, I punch things, everybody punches things, we all get upset, but you don't do it with your pitching hand. And Hunter Strickland is the real life version of Nuke LaLoosh.
Yeah.
He really is. This guy has $1 million arm and a 10-cent head. It's just like every time you think he's making progress, he does something stupid. And I really have been impressed with how Strickland had been handling the role of the closer, and I've kind of been in his corner this year. It was great to see him mature. It was a fresh start.
Me too. I've been in his corner too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get on him for past indiscretions. Everything's kind of been water under the bridge. You can tell that Strickland has learned from his mistakes. And then to go out and do something like that, it's just so dumb. If I'm the Giants, I would want to file and not have to pay his salary during this time because it's a self-inflicted wound. It's not going to happen. But,
not going to happen, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'd be pissed about something like that. And it is a shame because Strickland really has – I gave numbers just there. He really has, been pretty good this year. It just shows that he's not ready for the closer role, and I don't think he ever will be after that.
This is going to hang over his head for a long time. So he's out 6 to 8 weeks, and he, I won't read it right now because I don't want to give him that enjoyment, but he wrote a long Instagram post apologizing to Giants fans, and he said all the quote right things and saying that, I let my team down, and he's not talking about the blown save. Everybody blows saves. That's not letting the team down. The fact that he punched a door shows that he cares. That being said, he's apologizing for now hurting the team. Hurting the team because now he's not there. He's not going to be there for 6 to 8 weeks. He knows he's hurt the team. Hunter Strickland may blow a few saves here and there. Every closer does, except for the top 2 or 3. It's just the nature of the game. The fact is that he was a valuable tool. And I don't think anyone realizes the times he does come in and gets a 3-out save. Just boom, 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 right? No one talks about it because it's not sexy. It's just like a good umpire. No one talks about a good umpire. They only talk about the umpires who blow calls. So it's just the nature of the position, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. It takes a certain mental fortitude that just... It exemplifies not only being bulldogged like Hunter Strickland is. I think you need half of his personality to be a closer. You need to be crazy. You need to be chaotic. You need to be macho. You need to be balls out to the wall. You need to be fearless. But at the same time, you need to be calculated, cool, calm, collected. You need to be able to perform under pressure. You need some of those more, calming kind of personalities, and he unfortunately doesn't appear to have it with his track record of going after Harper with the brawls, of just relying on his fastball when he was younger, thinking, I'm just going to blow everyone away. I don't care if this is in the major leagues, and he gets burned by that. To now, punching doors because he blew a save. It's like, you blew a save, dude. Mariano Rivera blew saves. He didn't punch a door. Okay, it doesn't happen. Okay, Sergio Romo didn't do that. Rod Beck didn't do that. Rob Nen didn't do that. It just, you're an idiot. And now the Giants, when he comes back off the DL, I have an official proposal that they change all of their doors to balsa wood.
So it'll just shatter when he hits it?
Yeah, because it's cheap to replace a balsa wood door.
Yeah.
Protect your players.
Bumgarner said, in the Baggerly piece I mentioned, Bumgarner said that Wilson used to tear stuff up in the clubhouse all the time.
And that's
but at least
fine,
he was
right?
smart enough not to do it with his pitching hand.
Yeah, go try to tear a phone book in half. That's great. Go ahead.
You know, and it's funny because I'll reference
toss the post-game spread. Whatever. They can clean it up. But don't freaking punch a door.
Right.
By the way, clearly it wasn't a plaster door like most of us have in our homes. It must have been some sort of fire door or metal door.
Probably. Whatever it was, the door won. And
now he's out. And that's, like you said, that's the third Giant. It's amazing because MadBum, 5th metacarpal. Longoria, 5th metacarpal. Now, was it his 5th metacarpal?
Yes.
God,
yes, it was.
I mean, it's just, what the heck?
Year of the pinky. And the thing of it is the way that it went down, and now Pierce Johnson, it's like you said, is Pierce Johnson better than Hunter Strickland? No, he's not. They have to fill a role now with a whole. I hope one of the 4 guys we mentioned earlier steps up and takes it, like Watson or Dyson. But I also don't blame Bochy if he just wants to stick with what's going on. And it's weird, though, because last night was what we all wanted to see when Melancon signed. 8 innings of Bumgarner, 1 inning of Melancon.
That's exactly what the equation should have been. Yep.
Right. And so, maybe it was a peek at that. Who knows? But all Hunter Strickland's done is cost himself a job, put himself on the injured list, hurt his team, and opened up a competition for his job.
Yes, he has.
And I don't think they're going to trust him as the closer when he comes back. And I actually tweeted before we even knew that he broke his hand when he got pulled in that game. I said, you can bet on it. His job's in jeopardy. And I didn't expect him to lose it for injury, and that just solved that problem. But, it's funny. We were talking about this pre-show, and there's just, because of those incidents that you mentioned, because of the Bryce Harper stuff, because of, it's all pretty much primarily Harper, but because he's shown to have a horrible temper, Giants fans, because of the Michael Morris incidents, Giants fans were never going to be happy with anything Hunter Strickland did. It didn't matter that Hunter Strickland's ERA was under 3. It didn't matter that he was finishing these games. It seems like a majority of the fan base was looking for an excuse to hate on Strickland, and they found it. And the irony of that is so many of the fans found it that night before they even found out about the broken pinky. When, like you said, he had blown 3 saves previously. They went on to win 2 of those games. One of them was not his fault. Yet he's always going to be a villain, like you said, Casilla, in the minds of Giants fans. And it's really kind of unfair at this point because he was having that good of a season. But then you go do something stupid and, all night I defend him. I wake up in the morning, I read about the news, I immediately turn to the wife and go, damn it, I can't defend him anymore.
I feel the same way, Eric. I mean, for you, a lot of the toxic Giants fans, to be honest, probably don't even listen to this podcast. If anyone is listening to this podcast right now, and be honest with yourself, I'm not accusing you of anything, but if you really thought before his last blown save, that Hunter Strickland was trash and that he should have been replaced and he should have been off the team or he should have been mid-inning relief, really look inside yourself. I mean, do you really think that? He had a low 2 ERA. He had those 3 blown saves, again, 2 by Goldie, which the Giants won both games. And then, of course, the pop-up drop by Panik. So that wasn't his fault. That was technically a blown save, but it should have been a save. This was the first loss the Giants had a third of the way through the season, that could be directly attributable to Hunter Strickland. So don't tell me he sucks. Don't tell me he's lost all these games for the Giants. He hasn't. He's lost one game. One game for the Giants. That's it. So for all of these Giants fans to just knee-jerk and just go, get him off the team, he's a bum. After he broke his hand, I'm not saying he should be off the team and he should lose his job, but I will say that, like you, I can't defend him.
No.
I can't defend him to the point of I still think he's valuable for the team, and that's what really sucks about it, because he did really hurt the team. Not for the blown save. Everybody blows saves. He really hurt the team with his injury, because now, you figure you have 2 save opportunities a week on average. He's missing 6 to 8 weeks, so we're talking about 12 to 16 save opportunities that he's going to miss. And if he had I think he has a decent save percentage, despite what this year technically is, because he's blown 4 in stats. But the fact of the matter is that I think he's clearly better than closer by committee. And I think one of the first save opportunities that happened, which the Giants still did win the other day, was when Sam Dyson came in. And I know he closed a lot of games last year in 2017, the year that they lost 99 games. So it's who cares, right? There were low pressure situations in the sense of, yeah, it's a save, but if they lose, whatever. Sam Dyson just didn't get the job done. And, he got 2 outs, but allowed 2 runs. And, Moranta closed the game. But if Strickland was available that day, would he have probably blown that save? Probably not. Probably not. He probably would have closed it without any stress most of the time. So I think Giants fans, you have to take a look at okay, great. You're so happy that Hunter Strickland's on the DL, because I saw a lot of people going, oh, thank God. Oh, this is great. Oh, no, the Giants don't have to make a decision. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, he helped the team. And it's yeah, you really need to be careful what you wish for, because if we start seeing a string over the next 3 to 6 weeks of these blown saves by closer by committee, I'm going to point right back to you, Giants fans, who said this, and go, really? Really? Is this better? And I don't think so.
He had a 2.01 ERA heading into that blown save.
Yeah, because it was 3 runs, right, that he gave up in third of an inning or whatever. So
yeah, it was 3 1/3. He threw 25 pitches and only 15 of them went for strikes.
Yeah,
and they were able to just sit on anything in the zone because he was so wild, and that'll happen. Pitchers will get a wild hair up their nose, as Kruko likes to say, and it's the way it is, as Dyson showed on Wednesday again in your example. But it's not like he was out there blowing opportunity after opportunity. So as a fan base, toxic is a good word. That happens sometimes, and there's been other guys throughout time that are scapegoats. And Strickland has fallen into that category. I guess it's hard for people to see change in other people, so they don't want to give him credit. And once you make up your mind about something, it's hard to change it. And I think a lot of Giants fans just still think this is 2014.
It's just like politics and religion, right? I mean,
yeah.
Once you're settled in a belief or a follower or a political idea, it doesn't matter. Objective reasoning and data and evidence doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No. So you're true with your convictions, and that's just the way it is. Sometimes that's a good thing. I think most of the time it's a bad thing. Have an open mind, people. Open your mind. Listen to everybody. Look at the information. Then come to a conclusion. But this is just baseball. This isn't life. We could talk about a lot of deeper things, which we never will. Although Eric and I do offline sometimes.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Giants.
Yeah,
I know, right? If we could record all of that. The Giants are actually 3rd in the National League in team batting average at 256, and this has been an amazing stat. They were leading the NL a few weeks ago in between our podcasts, but they've been floating above the top 3 here, which is amazing. And the runners in scoring position, I don't have the stat right in front of me, but they certainly are above average now. So their offense has really been carrying a lot of the load lately, especially this last few weeks where they're 9-8. But that's because their pitching, conversely, which has been their strength traditionally, has not been their strength. They're 9th in the NL in team ERA at 4.12. And Eric, I just, since we've been doing this podcast, I'm used to saying, the Giants are 3rd in team ERA at 3.5 or whatever. it's always been in the 3s. To see their team ERA over 4, it's a little painful.
That's a little jarring because all the championship teams were basically built around pitching, defense, and timely hitting. You mentioned 2012, where that was probably their best of the 3, where they kind of ran away with the division a little bit in September, and they continued that role even though they fell behind in 2 series. And it was always the pitching stepped up instead of the hitting. But you're right, the hitting this year is what's kind of carrying them, and that's not what we expected, I don't think. And you can see it in games that they lose. Like that Monday night game we're talking about that was blown.
Right.
The Giants didn't get a hit after the 4th inning. So you can't just blame completely the entire bullpen. You can't just blame the pitching because the hitting didn't show up. Because generally speaking, the hitting is showing up. Like you said, 3rd in the National League. I'm trying to get to the stat. 3rd in the National League in hitting. I don't know what they are with the runners in scoring position, but they have been better. And they keep the line moving. Their lineup is longer with McCutchen. Moving Posey to the 2-hole has seemed to have been a really good move. Doing runners scoring position. Doing the alternating leadoff men, I think, with Gorky's and Panik seems to kind of be working, even though Gorky's is struggling a little bit. But like the Giants, where is it? They're right in the middle at 241 with runners in scoring position. So that's an improvement.
Yeah. It's an improvement, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, remember when they started the year like 190 for the first month? I mean, they're definitely much better. I remember a couple of games ago they were like 4 for 10 with runners in scoring position. So they've definitely improved that. It's the team pitching that's been a struggle. Most of that being the starter ERA, which is directly attributable to the injuries by Bum, Cueto, and Shark. So that's just the way it is. Although Shark maybe a little bit less, because that's kind of his career ERA with the Giants. It's like around a 4. But certainly Cueto and Bum, which is 40% of the rotation, has really hit their ERA pretty hard. But I think that also is the silver lining, because if Bum, especially with his start last night, kind of becomes more traditional Bum, and they can hold on. I know we've said this all year. Oh, if they could just play 500 till Bum comes back. By the way, when Bum came back, they were 30-30, right? Yeah. And now they're 38-38. So, since they got Bum back, well, they're still 500. So, and they're 1-3 in games that he started. So it's kind of funny to think of like, well, without Bum, they'd actually be 2 games above 500. But if he, this is his turning point because he's done with spring training, and then Cueto comes back in early July right before the All-Star break, they still have a second half left. And with 4 games back right now, if they can kind of hover around there and they can make a push, I mean, I just want to see them do something like the Houston Astros have done, right, where they won 13 or 14 in a row. I don't expect that, but it would be amazing if they could run out, 10 out of 12 or something like that, where they suddenly just accelerate up the standings, sweep Arizona in a series, take 3 out of 4 from LA, and then suddenly they're up by 2-3 games in September, and that would be incredible, man, because they're also 3.5 games. They're 4 games back in the West, but they're 3.5 games back in the wild card as well. So both playoff potential are kind of around the same, except, of course, wild card, you got more teams to battle. So I would still say the more likely and, of course, the more desirable scenario is winning the West. And that's got to be their entire focus right now.
Yeah, and this rolling right off the point you just made about the offense being better, they play 20 of their next 26 games at home. And right now they have a 274 batting average at home, second best in the National League.
274.
Behind the Rockies. They average 5 runs a game at home, which is more than they average on the road. I know road it's like 3.9 or 3.8. And with this stretch of 26 games leading up to the All-Star break at home, and their only road trip being at Arizona and Colorado, they're right back. They're all familiarity right now. They're all in surroundings that they like, that they're used to. So this could be the stretch with their hitting to take advantage of the fact that the rest of the NL West hasn't run away with it. And hanging around 500, they're a contender. It doesn't matter that they're 500. You don't have to have a winning record or necessarily, you don't have to be like 5-10 games over 500 to be a contender. As long as you're in your division within a certain handful of games, 5 games, you're a contender. And that's exactly what they are. Like right now, I don't consider the Rockies and Padres contenders in the division.
I mean, refresh my memory, in 2010, weren't the Giants 5 games back with 10 games to play behind the Padres?
I don't know if it was that many.
I believe it was 5 with 10 to play, and then they tied it, and then of course on the last day of the season they were tied, and it came down to that last game, which what's his face won with Brian Wilson getting the save. Yeah, Sanchez getting that last one. I remember I was hiking with my daughter that day, and I was like so afraid to watch the game. But anyway, sorry, but you're right. The point being is that I know they were at least around that ballpark, around 5 games, maybe 4 games with 10 to play. As long as in September they're in that striking distance, anything's possible.
Yeah. I mean, the Giants, they're hitting home runs at home, too. They're averaging over a home run a game, 38 homers in 34 games at home. And we were screaming about home runs the last few years. So they've got that back. You got guys like Hundley, who's got 8 home runs, McCutchen driving the ball out of the yard, Alan Hanson coming through. Brandon Crawford, Belt, homering, granted it was in L.A., but Belt, also he'll probably get his swing back. There was a little blip with the appendicitis. So they're primed to possibly go on a run here. And I don't know what the Dodgers schedule is coming up offhand, because I actually started looking at this about a week ago. But they play some tough teams. Like the Dodgers, I believe, play the Cubs again to start next week, and they just lost 2 of 3 to the Cubs.
Yeah.
So it's entirely this is the time in my mind this season. This is the time for them to go on the run. I mean, they've already had a road trip through 3 cities. Like I said, 4 different road trips that went 3 cities. And I can remember that was just a few years ago, they only had 1 road trip that was a 3-city trip, and it came in September. So they kind of got screwed by the schedule makers, and they've been through like some of the toughest part of the schedule. Because coming up, they just finished the series with Miami, then they have San Diego, and then there's Colorado, and then they do get to face Arizona in Arizona, and then Colorado again. So it's like they have their chances. They absolutely have their chances right now. And the way things are lining up, I would not be surprised to see the Giants either in first place or a game or 2 out of first place when the All-Star break hits.
Yeah, and you said that they don't fly past the Rocky Mountains until mid-August?
Yep.
That's
they
crazy.
Get to play. Yeah, well, I mean, think about the road trips they've been on already. In May, they started off going through Atlanta, Philly, and Pittsburgh, all East Coast, all non-division teams.
Then they had Washington, Miami. Yeah,
right, and ended up in L.A. They had Houston, Chicago, and then they ended up in Colorado.
Yeah,
so they've been playing. They've got some of these tougher games out of their schedule now.
That's true.
The road series that they have that aren't against the division. They've got like 3 in Oakland and 2 in Seattle right after the break, and then again their next road trip is in the division, and then that road trip I was referencing is Dodgers, Cincinnati, and the Mets. And so, again, comfortable surroundings playing the Dodgers before that Cincinnati series. And the Giants are an old team, let's be honest. They're a veteran team. And a team like that needs a rhythm. And by staying in the Western time zone for 2 straight months, they should be able to develop that rhythm. It sounds like excuse making, but it just happens to be what they have to go through this year. Every team has something they have to go through. And to me, that's what the Giants are dealing with, that and the Pinkies. So... they have that opportunity right now, and they've got to grasp it. And it feels like they're trying to grasp it right now. It could all fall apart. They could lose the next 5 games. And if they do that, I mean, it could be time to switch to seller mode. But right now they're contenders.
I know. There's been a lot of, innuendo about Bumgarner being traded to a contender. But, the way the Giants went all in with Longo and McCutchen, and these guys with a marginal team at best coming in was a sign that they're not ready to sell yet. So for all these people thinking, oh, well, I think the Giants, might consider selling Bum. No, if they were 10, 14 games back right now like they were at this time last year, I would say that's a possibility. But no, they're 4 games back. They just got Bum back. He's just turning the corner. They're going to get Cueto back. Maybe the Shark, and their hitting's been pretty good so far. It's a weak division, so no, the Giants are no way. there's no way. There's no way. The only way that's possible, I should say, is if the Giants, like you said, lose like freaking 15 out of 18 or something just so abysmal because, you know, the trading deadline is July 31st. By July 20th or 25th, they're 13, 14, 15 games back. Then maybe they might consider it. But unless that absolute apocalypse happens, no. He puts butts in the seats. He still has a couple years left on his contract. He is still so valuable to this team, despite his injury-laden seasons of last year and this year. He's been durable except for 2 stupid accidents, right? Riding a motorcycle and getting hit by a line drive. None of his injuries have been attributable to wear and tear. He's a horse, and it's just been freak accidents. So, no, I do not expect the Giants to trade Madison Bumgarner. I don't think that's even in the realm of possibility.
I mean, he puts butts in the seats, too. And even though the Giants are 3rd in the National League in attendance, we still see the empty seats. You know, the franchise.
We're not used to them. Yeah.
No, they're now offering, you know, 2-for-1 hot dog specials and beer specials.
Yep.
And they didn't have to do that the last few years because the product on the field was enough.
They even have this corporate a deal where it's like $20 a game or something like that, where you can buy like a monthly pass for, I don't know how much it is, but it's directed towards people who work in downtown San Francisco who work, you know, past 5, 6, 7 o'clock, but still want to see some of the game, but don't want to spend $100 on a game to see 3 innings. And so they're charging like $20 for standing room only on this like rotating basis where you can just basically come in and let's say you get off of work, it's a 3rd inning. You come in, you get your dog and your beer and you stand or you find an empty seat somewhere. And you watch, 6 innings or 5 innings, and then you leave before the game ends because you got to go home early to get ready for the next morning. I think these are signs that the Giants have lost some ticket revenue, not substantial. I think it's like we're talking 10%, but enough to start, coming up with some of these marketing ideas. But yeah, I can't help but notice when I watch the games in the middle of the game, not the 1st inning or the 9th inning, but 5th inning, where you look up in the 3rd deck and it's like maybe 40% full in the 3rd deck, most of it around home plate, and near the ends it's like you got your stragglers who just like to be alone up there in the corners,
Yeah.
No, it's really weird because, as of a year ago and of course the previous 5-6 years, it's been just an amazing sellout streak. So the Giants got to, be creative. But, oh my God, I mean, how about going to Miami when they had like 5,000 in the stands?
Yeah, they did. Literally 5,000.
Literally 5,000.
Attendance, yeah.
I mean, like, oh my God. Could you imagine that?
Yes, because I watched Tampa Bay Rays games.
Oh, you did. That's true. That's true. It's like watching a not even a minor league game. It's like watching like a semi-pro game. I mean, it's just like, it's pathetic. You can hear the players talk. You can hear every crack of the bat and slap of the glove, and it's a very odd experience because, I went to Candlestick when I was young, when we had like 6, 7, 8,000 people in the stands on Tuesday night. So I know what it's like. As a fan, it's actually kind of cool in a way, but as a fan, it's not good for your franchise to be drawing 5, 6, 7,000 people per game, because that's like college draws more than that. Come on.
To be fair, and I totally get it, like, who really wants to go see a Marlins game on a Monday night? Like, just even when the Giants were, just hosted the Marlins, we were watching Monday, and it was like, wow. She's like, look at all those empty seats. I'm like, yeah, it's a Monday game against the Marlins. I'm like, if this is the Dodgers or if this is the Diamondbacks or something like that, or the Padres or the Rockies, it's a different crowd. But when you're playing these other teams, these random-ass teams that stink, you're not going to draw so well. So I get that the marketing kicks in. They're still 3rd in attendance, so they're not like losing money.
They're not hurting for money. No, they're fine.
Right. No, they aren't. And it's just, it just goes to show how cyclical it is with sports. There's going to be ebbs and flows. Like you, I went to many games at Wrigley Field when I was a kid where it was like a 1/3 full tops. You wouldn't believe it to look at Wrigley Field nowadays. But I've been in Wrigley where I could yell and the guy on the other side of the ballpark could yell back at me,
Totally. It was like that at Candlestick all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
But it's just something I noticed.
I used to get the third deck seats, and by the fifth inning, I was behind home plate.
Yep, that's the way to do it. You buy the cheap seat, and then you just work your way down.
Every time. Every time.
That was a lot easier to do back in the day, too.
Can't do that now.
No, they check tickets like crazy now, especially with the ushers at the top of those rows holding the sign that says, please wait between batters, or whatever it says. Totally. No, it's a different world, though. But, just home sweet home, regardless of the crowds being a little smaller, home sweet home is where they're going to make their hay this year, as we've shown with the records. And, coming up, it's time to do that.
All right, so, Eric, you posed this question. Who's your MVP so far for the Giants this season? Go ahead.
So, all right, I'll answer first then. I don't have any stats in front of me. I do have Pablo's page open, but I really feel like Pablo has been the MVP of this team because of, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, how versatile he's been. I really can't. Now, we talked about it on the show. I've written articles about it. When he went to Boston, it was screw him, screw this mentality, all that stuff. But he has absolutely earned his way back into the good graces of Giants fans. And I feel like having him on the bench has given Bochy the ability to work how he wants to work. And it was funny because Pablo yesterday, before the Padres game, usually Bochy will do his pregame thing in the dugout. Well, Pablo came out and did it for him to start. And they even asked him, he's like, Pablo, after Evan Longoria comes back, where's Pablo going to fit in? And Pablo said it. And this tells me he knows his role. Pablo said, Pablo will be back on the bench. He's still a bench player after all, and Longoria is the starter. And I give him credit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. You know what I mean? That just says how much he's learned. And there was no – Kelby is not going to be the backup that Pablo's been. Who else has been in the infield lately? You know what I mean? It's like it's unbelievable that Pablo has been able to step up. And during Brandon Belt's injury, when he had to take over first base full time, I was worried because Pablo was starting to scuffle a little bit. But when he took over first base for Belt from June 1st to June 15th, I'm including the game that Belt left, he hit 3 home runs, 2 doubles. He's driven in 8. He scored 6 runs himself. He's got a batting average of .317. His OPS is .977. So Pablo's doing things, and I feel like he's been the MVP of this team just because of his intangibles. Sure. I mean, you throw him pitching the 1 inning in there. That gets included to me. It really does, because he started as second base in Chicago. He's taking grounders at short just in case. So I kind of feel like he's been their MVP because he's been able to be a super utility guy. And I give him a ton of credit. And I know that there are guys with better stats out there, and I know you're going to mention a couple. But like in my heart of hearts, I feel like Pablo Sandoval has been the soul of the Giants this year. And I'd give a tip of the cap to Nick Hundley as well for kind of being the soul of the team.
Sure.
Because a lot of guys talk about his preparation, and we can see that he's changed his approach at the plate. He talked about how he looks in the launch angle more, and it's shown by his 8 home runs. So Hundley's another leader. So I'm drawn to the leaders right now in the clubhouse, and I put Hundley and Sandoval there. And I would also like a little bit of credit to Derek Holland. I know his stats are not the greatest. They just aren't. And he has only pitched 6 innings a handful of times this season. But he's done a masterful job. When they were on their losing streak, he won that game in Pittsburgh. When they needed a win,
He's the one who beat Scherzer, right?
Right. I was just looking at that. When they needed to win in the series finale against Scherzer, Holland delivered with 5 innings.
That's David and Goliath right there. That's just stupid.
Yeah. He's been hanging in there, and he struck out 7 the other day against Miami and only walked 2 over 6 innings. So, to me, because I thought Holland was going to be ready to be thrown to the scrap heap in the middle of the season. I thought guys like Suarez would overtake him. And while Suarez has been good and Rodriguez has been, good as well, I just feel like Holland, and again, this is another veteran that I'm naming, I just feel like Holland's kind of been their guy to help stop it. He's been the Bumgarner that they didn't have a couple times. And if it wasn't for Derek Holland beating Pittsburgh that one time, if he wasn't okay with getting pinch hit for after 4 innings against Arizona at the beginning of the month, right, where the Giants had that moment in the game where they had to get those runs, and they did. They exploded for a few runs. So I give him a tip of the cap too. I feel like Pablo's been the MVP of the team, and I'll turn it over to you because I know that you're looking at everyday players. And
no, I think those answers are great. I mean, Nick Hundley, 8 home runs. I mean, my God, he's on pace for more than 16 as a backup catcher. I mean,
he has more than Buster.
Yeah, no, definitely has more than Buster. Buster has what, 5, right?
Yeah,
and
his 5th the other night.
Yeah, and Hundley has 8. So, and he's on pace for more than 16 because they're not even halfway through the season. I don't think he's going to hit 16, but if he did hit 16 or more, that would be insane for a backup catcher to hit that many home runs, considering the Giants don't have anyone that hits over 20. So, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, Belt has 12 right now. He leads the team. Crawford has 8 too. So, I think those are great picks. I don't disagree with those at all. Obviously, if we were to count votes, I don't think they would win, only based on, because those are like a lot of the intangibles that you were bringing in, which are extremely important.
Let's be honest. Before I basically named Willie Mack guys there instead of MVP guys.
Okay, that's a fair comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like the Willie Mack guys are the ones, and it's funny because Hundley won it last year. I feel like those are the guys that are keeping the team together in every the little times of crisis, like the losing streak in Miami, like getting killed in Philly and Pittsburgh. So that's kind of why I drew on them.
No, I think those are fine picks, and you're right. There may be more Willie Mack Award type of picks. As far as like straight up statistical proven MVPs so far, I would have to give the edge to Brandon Crawford. And it's weird to say that. I mean, he's always been an amazing shortstop and a decent offensive player, but I've never considered him in the end of June as an MVP candidate for the team. Never. This is just a really odd position to be in. But the reality is he leads the team in batting average. He's got 8 home runs. He is 19th in the MLB in WAR. I mean, you're talking about guys like Mike Trout and others and the American League team. So he's way up there in terms of WAR. His defensive prowess is second to none in terms of the shortstop position. He saved so many runs at that position. He's been incredible. After his swing was corrected by Pablo and who else was it?
Blanco.
It was Gregor Blanco, yeah. He was on a tear as of, a week ago. He was hitting 401 since May 1st, which was leading the entire National League. He's dipped a little bit since then, but he's still hitting 310. And remember when, we were going into May and we thought he was, he was at 191 or 194, whatever it was. He was under 200. And we were like, ugh. Boy, if he can just hit 250, 240, we'll be happy. Now, he still could end up the year 250, 240. Don't get me wrong. He's still got more than half the year left, and he's hitting 310. So the math is there. But he has outperformed where I thought he should have been and could have been by now. So for me, he's definitely the MVP so far. I would be interested to see where Brandon Belt would have been if he had not been on the DL for a couple of weeks with his appendectomy. Because he had been tearing the cover off the ball prior to his departure. And he has a home run since he's been back. And he's still hitting well, like 304. He leads the team in home runs and RBI. So he's still a potential candidate. And he's good defensively. But I think Crawford is a step above. I think Crawford has saved more runs than Brandon Belt on defense. And so even though Belt has the power numbers a little bit more than Crawford, and they're about similar in batting average and on-base percentage and slugging and all that stuff, I got to give the edge to Crawford. But that said, a month from now, if Belt went on a tear and he's hitting 320 and Crawford's down to 280 and, Belt's back up to 16 home runs and, 60 RBI or 50 RBI or something like that, then, I might switch my vote. But for right this minute, which is the question, I got to go with Brandon Crawford.
Yeah, Crawford, I think, if he can sustain or stay on this, he's in the MVP of the National League discussion right now.
Yeah,
I mean, like you said, it's tapered off a little bit, but like if you just look at All-Star voting, and I know it's a popularity contest, but he's leading by like 500,000 votes or something at the shortstop position.
And he's never been a popular nationally shortstop.
Right.
It's weird.
So people are finally starting to recognize, and I give him credit. His OPS plus is 131. The only one higher on the team is Belt with his 155. Just like on base percentage is 364. The only one higher on the team is Belt at 398. Mm-hmm. So Crawford has definitely shown, and it's funny because we were worried at the end of April, and I called for Crawford to have a great season this year because all the distractions were gone. And I was really getting worried about that towards the end of April, and he's absolutely taken it to another level. And it's not going to sustain that level, but I absolutely agree. He's been the most talented player on the Giants thus far. And usually when he's in the mix of it, the Giants are winning games.
So we did miss the MLB draft. That's what we were going to talk about last week. It didn't happen. But the Giants had the number 2 pick. Now, if you remember last year, Giants and the Tigers were fighting for the worst record in the major leagues. Now, if they had tied in their record, no, I guess they did tie in their record. The Giants, the Tigers had the tiebreaker in terms of worst record because of common opponents, whatever. But if you remember that last game, Pablo Sandoval. Now, it was a tied game, so a lot of people go, "Oh, if Pablo hadn't hit that home run, the Giants would have the number 1 pick." Well, no, not necessarily, because it would have gone extra innings. And the Giants still could have won that game. So we really don't know. But the fact is that Pablo did hit a home run in the bottom of the 9th. It was a walk-off, and they finished, with the same record as the Tigers. But the Tigers, by default, had the number 1 pick. Now, the Giants, with the number 2 pick, picked Georgia Tech catcher by the name of Joey Bart. Now, all of the post-draft interviews have pointed to the fact that the Giants, this is their number 1 pick no matter what. So if you believe them, which I guess I do, ? I don't know their inner workings. If you believe that, well, then getting the number 1 or the number 2 pick didn't matter because they got the guy that they wanted. Now, if they're not, if they're being cheeky about it, maybe they did want that one pitcher that went number 1, forget his name, and they got the catcher instead. But Joey Bart, Georgia Tech, and it was amazing because when I was looking up his stats, they're impressive, right? His junior year, last year, 56 games, 216 at-bats, hit 361, his slash was 474 and 639, 16 bombs, 38 RBI, and 3 stolen bases. Well, everybody's been talking, he's going to be Buster Posey's replacement in 3 years, and Buster will move to first base or third base or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's possible. I would say that's possible. Let's see what Buster's stats were his junior year when he was drafted by the Giants. Holy shit, Eric! I didn't remember how good they were.
Yeah,
they were incredible. So he had about 39. He had 39 more at bats than Joey Bart. 257 at bats. Here we go. 463 batting average. That's 102 points higher than Joey Bart. 566 on base, right? That's like 85 points higher than Joey Bart. 879 slugging. That was 240 points higher than Joey Bart. 26 home runs. 10 more than Joey Bart. 93 RBI, which was a whopping 55 RBI more than Joey Bart, who only had 38. And then he had 5 stolen bases, which, whatever, doesn't matter. What's really crazy is you look at his freshman and sophomore year, Buster Posey, and his freshman year, he only had 3 home runs, and his sophomore year, he only had 4 home runs. And he had a very similar number of at-bats to his junior year, in which he hit 26 home runs. So, no wonder Buster went so high with the Giants. My God, what a stellar year he had. And it's amazing to see his increase in home run production from his freshman, sophomore, and then junior just exploded, right? Just trounced his previous 2 years, and he hit almost 500. To the fact that, he had his MVP year in 2012 where he hit 20 home runs or whatever it was, to now where he's hit 5, Eric. Yeah. 5 home runs. I think everybody over the last 3-4 years does not negate his hitting prowess. The guy is always going to be, he's going to be a lifetime 300 hitter. He is just an amazing, he has an amazing eye. He has amazing body position and power, or not power, but mechanics. But his power's gone. His power is depleted to a point where You can't expect more than 10 home runs a year from this guy. And I don't have any theories other than, the typical, he's a catcher and he gets worn down. Okay, yeah, great. A lot of catchers have still hit a lot of home runs over their whole career, like Piazzas and stuff like that. I know they're rare, and I'm not saying that he should be a Mike Piazza, but he struck me as the type of player who could do what Mike Piazza did, and he's just not. And he's obviously an extremely valuable player, former MVP, but with these numbers, he's never going to be an MVP again. And so, what would you attribute his power evaporation to?
I'm with you, but on the catcher things, we also know that he's got a bad back. If you've noticed, he had, after the 16-inning game last week, he obviously took the next day off, and then he again took that Sunday off. And I think he also took the last game of the Marlins series off. So it's 3 days off since a week ago Thursday. And it's because his back does tighten up and spasm. And that comes from the, being in the crouch, up and down all the time. And it's nice to see the Giants finally recognize this by moving him into the 2-hole. Because you want a guy who makes contact in the 2-hole. You don't want a power hitter. And that's what he's been doing. He makes contact. He's still he's only batting .290 though right now, and he's kind of slumped a little bit lately. I think he's batting like .250 over the last week, or maybe even a little lower than that. Mm-hmm. And he's getting older. He's 30, I believe he turned this year, or maybe it was 30. He turns 31 this year. No, there he is. He's 31 years old. There's been some wear and tear on him, and I didn't mind that the Giants selected Joey Bart. I didn't feel like they were looking to replace
I didn't
Buster
mind
Posey.
that at all. No.
I actually think it was the smart, safe pick, and I would not, be surprised if we don't see Bart catching games for the Giants down the road. Buster is going to show his worth, but look at this. His OPS is 793. And you've got guys like Belt at 936, Crawford at 848. Even Hundy is at 839. So... it's a combination of everything, but we know his eye is still there and his smarts are still there. So,
his
I don't think
defense has been incredible too.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to be concerned about, but it sucks to see more than anything. But like in the sense that we can't count on him to be the MVP he was in 2012.
No,
but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a solid
good player. Yeah, he's a good player. He's not the star of the team anymore, to be honest. I mean, marketing-wise, of course, he still is, but production-wise, he's not. He's not.
No.
And
if you want to go production,
really weird.
Production is Belt, Crawford. Those guys are.
But of course, he's going to be starting as the National League catcher.
and it's not like he doesn't deserve it.
No, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, because you look across the board, there's not any like amazing standouts. It's just it's a weird position to be in, because we're used to this guy from a few years ago being the perennial 15 to 20 home runs, 300 with 90 RBI, and he's just not that guy anymore. But ironically, it seems to me his defense has actually improved over the years, which is kind of ironic. I mean, it's almost like it's not just physical, but obviously his mental game has really elevated to the point where he can anticipate a lot of things that happen. He calls a good game, of course. But yeah, I mean, Buster Posey signed through 2020, so he's got a few more years left with the Giants. He'll be like 34 by the time his contract expires, or 33, so we'll see what happens after then. But we still love him. Yeah. He's amazing.
Well, Bumgarner said it, how smart Posey is. He's like, I could be pitching a game. He's like, and this has happened, and I don't throw a single pitch all game long. And then I think to myself, this would be the perfect pitch in this situation. And then Buster throws down that exact sign. Mm-hmm. So he's very in tune with what's going on, and he's valuable in other ways than just stats.
For sure. All right. So we're going to wrap this sucker up here. We're going to talk about who's hot, who's not, and then some injuries. So, Eric, I'll let you take away, because you kind of filled out who's hot and who's not.
Yeah, but I kind of punted it because nobody's like tearing it up right now.
Yeah, we talked about this pre-show. That's true. No one's hitting like 500 over the last 2 weeks. That's not what's been happening.
There's no Brandon Crawford streaks going on right now.
Yeah.
But Andrew McCutchen in the month of June, and it was always talked about that he starts to get hot after Memorial Day, and so far it's bared fruit. He's batting .304 in the month of June. He's got 5 homers, 5 doubles, a triple. He's scored 13 runs, and he's driven in 14. And I saw the stat last night. He is second, I believe, in baseball with most hard hit balls over that time. He's got like 25 balls hit 95 miles an hour or higher. And we saw it earlier in the season. He was scorching the ball and they were just going at people. They're finally finding holes, and it's good to see that because Kutch is on a 1-year deal basically right now. He is a free agent after this season. So, you would think that he would run with it to try to earn another contract, and it was concerning how often he wasn't coming through earlier, but he's turned into a solid player, and defensively he's just phenomenal. But he's been the hottest guy on the club over the month of June. He's generally been in the middle of what's been going on, and I guess he's hot. Kutch is hot. And then Nick Hundley I threw in there too, because he's been batting .323 in June in his limited playing time. 33 plate appearances in the month of June. He's got 6 extra base hits. 3 of those are home runs. He's driven in 8, and his OPS is over 1.1. He's got a 1.106 OPS, and that means he's just tearing the cover off the ball. And so, like I gave him a hat tip earlier, Hundley has also been hot.
He has. So Mac Williamson, we haven't talked about him. He came off the DL after his concussion. He was on the DL for quite some time, and everybody. Here's the converse to the Hunter Strickland outrage from social media, even though his stats were pretty darn good. Even before Williamson came up and tore the cover off the ball for a week, because he was tearing the cover off the ball in AAA, everybody said, oh, you got to bring this guy. He's going to be great. I'm not saying I didn't think that, but I wasn't like, the one on social media saying, the Giants are idiots for not calling him up right now. Why aren't they calling him up? They called him up, and he did. He tore the cover off the ball. He sparked the Giants to a couple of wins. He was fantastic. Then he went on the DL by sliding into the wall, and he got a concussion, which was a great effort. He's come back. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been the same Mac. His average has dropped from 286 to 220 this month. He only has that 1 home run, and his OPS has dropped from 890 to 693. And the limited times I've seen him at bat, to me personally, he's pulling off the ball, and he's just swinging and missing a lot. And I don't know if it's just coincidence. He got into a slump for something unrelated to his DL stint, which is always possible, but just something isn't the same with Mac right now. And I don't have any solutions. And I don't know. At this point, the Giants aren't going to send him down. They're not going to option him. I think he's in the mix for left field. But he's not doing what we expect him to do to win that job.
Yeah, the other thing he seems to be weak at lately is his pitch recognition. Yeah. Every time, I don't know how many times in a row I've seen these pitchers start him off with a curveball, and he reacts like he never saw it coming. He's so geared up for the fastball to start off the at-bat, then they throw the curveball, and he's falling behind in these counts 0-1 constantly. He's constantly got strike 1 on him. He hasn't had multiple hits in a game the entire month of June. Every game that he does have a hit, he's 1 for 4 or 1 for 3. He's got 1 double and 1 home run. And the swing, it seems like, not that he's abandoning his new approach, but I'm not so sure he's staying locked in like he was before. And it just sucks because they were ready to give him the left field job. 2 weeks ago, Bruce Bochy said the left field job is Mac Williamson's, and then Mac went out and said, no thanks, I don't really want it.
I'm not ready, coach.
Yeah, he's not though. And like you say, the concussion, it's a big possibility, that I don't know how that totally lost his swing, maybe just the hotness, but he was a lot better before that concussion, and then he's just completely lost it since then. And like the Giants even started Alan Hanson in left field last night against a right-handed pitcher because they would rather have his bat in the lineup than Mac's. And I actually appreciate that the Giants got Alan Hanson in the lineup another way because you always want to get that guy at bats.
Yeah, I like Hanson. He's been a lot of fun so far. And I know it may be a flash in the pan, but I do like him so far.
I'm thinking he's not going to be, but Mac is looking like the flash in the pan. The
this
thing
point,
is
I
that,
know.
yeah, well, we used to always scream, you got to give him at bats, you got to give him at bats, you got to give him at bats. Well, guess what? He's had at bats, and he's not doing it. He's had, let's see, 57 plate appearances in the month of June, and he has 8 hits. He's batting 163.
Yeah.
So he's had the opportunity. He just doesn't seem to want to take it.
So then you also noted that Corey Guerin has not appeared in a game since June 12th. Is that right?
Yeah.
And
in
he's on the
that
roster.
game,
so what's going on?
in that game, he faced 2 hitters and gave up 2 hits and was immediately yanked. I mean, he's been the mop-up guy, but I think they're done with Corey Guerin.
Yeah, it seems like that. So are they just waiting to make the appropriate move based on roster and DL situations? Because they're carrying all these pitchers and they're not using him. They haven't used him for 10 days.
I think they're waiting to make the Samardzija move, because when they make the Samardzija
that
move,
makes sense.
Derek Rodriguez is going to move to the bullpen.
Yeah,
it's just the way it's going to be. So there's no need to fill the bullpen spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
you're right. So just keep him on the roster so you don't have to make 2 moves, right?
Right.
Keep him on the roster. You only have to make 1 move. They might have thrown him in if they had a lopsided game over the last 10 days, but they haven't. They haven't had a lopsided game. So I guess, any game they've been ahead by 2 or 3 runs or behind by 2 or 3 runs, they haven't had a use for him. So it's interesting politics there in baseball. Okay, so we'll wrap it up with injuries. Since we last recorded, the Giants have gotten Melancon, Williamson, Hanson, Pence, and Panik all back, which it's been fantastic. I mean, that's, a fifth of their roster they got back in the last 3 weeks. But, of course, conversely, they've lost Strickland and Longoria, and even Belt was on the DL for a while with his appendectomy, in which he tweeted a narked-out photo of himself on the
that
dummy,
was great.
which was fantastic. He said, he was high as shit, and he wasn't thinking, and his wife got all mad at him. But I thought it was great, because that just shows you who Brandon Belt is. I love the guy. He is, seriously, out of all the guys I've interviewed so far on the Giants, and I've interviewed almost everyone, not of the current team, of course, but from years past, he is absolutely the best and most fun interview I've ever had. You literally feel like you could ask him anything. He is just so derpy and down to earth and self-effacing, and just, I love the guy. I love his personality. He's just fantastic. But yeah, for him to tweet out that photo was like, dude, probably shouldn't have done that, but it wasn't a big deal. He had his appendectomy. He's all good now, but just in a season of these weird injuries, these freak injuries, that was another freak injury, because that's something that could not be controlled. It just happened. It was just his time to have appendicitis during the middle of the season. Not any other time, right? It had to be now.
Yep.
Not the off season, not when he was in college, not when he's retired. No, it had to be now. But, could have been during the World Series too. So I guess it's a good thing that, we can think of it that way. So yeah, they've had some injuries, but the Shark, of course, he pitched in Sacramento last night, and he's going to have one more rehab start. And Eric, these are all the stats that Eric dug up, so I don't want to take credit. But he struck out 7, gave up 4 hits and 2 runs last night, including a home run, which is to be expected. That's what he does. And then, of course, Johnny Cueto is pitching for Sacramento on Saturday, which will be his first rehab start. He's going to pitch 3 more times after that. His pitch count is at 40 pitches, and hopefully he'll be activated in early July before the All-Star break. So any comments about those guys, Eric?
No, it's just nice that Cueto is the biggest surprise, because you'll remember when he had his injury, I immediately wrote off the season for him. And then when we found out he didn't need to have surgery, it was a nice surprise.
Yeah, we were shocked by that. I mean, also the guy's 3-0 with a, .83 ERA or something like that. I mean, he's just been, in his limited activity, just so amazing for the Giants.
I feel like hearing about Cueto having a rehab start, I'm already thinking, already? It feels like he just kind of went on the DL like a month ago, but it's been a little more than that. So it's nice to see some of these guys getting back and to see the Giants have their full team again. Shark, you're going to get what you get with Shark, but apparently he was lighting up the radar gun last night, so he's got his strength back.
That's good. So, of course, Longoria got hit by that pitch in Miami, which we glossed over that whole retaliation with the Giants and the Marlins, and we don't need to get into that, but he did get hit by a pitch and broke his 5th metacarpal. So he had surgery, successful surgery. He's going to be out sometime after the All-Star break. They said 6 to 8 weeks. Unfortunately, nothing through his own fault. And look, the Giants are weaker not having Longo, but because you noted Pablo as being, one of your potential MVP so far, Pablo's got a higher batting average. Doesn't have as many home runs as Longo, but he has more home runs per at-bat than Longo so far. So really, when you break it down on a per at-bat basis, Pablo's been more productive than Longo. So it stands to say that it's possible that, Pablo may have, no problem filling in for Longo, considering he continues his current pace. So the Giants may not actually lose too much. They do lose the bat off the bench. They do lose
that's what they lose.
Inning replacement, defensive replacement. So they lose that. They lose the roster flexibility. But they don't lose the production, I would say, overall, over the first 6 innings of every game. But those last 3 innings are crucial. And, the guy off the bench, that's where the Giants lose. But
so here's the strange note. Think about this. The Giants are back to having an all homegrown infield.
Yeah.
Which is just weird because,
Pablo
once they traded away
Panik
Duffy,
yeah.
It hadn't been that way since Duffy got traded away.
Yeah, and then
so
you got Buster Posey behind the plate. Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you consider a Bumgarner start. You got an entire six player infield on Bumgarner starts, which is fantastic. Of course, they got rid of Blanco, which we glossed over that since we last recorded. They did get rid of him. But you're right. All homegrown infield. Amazing. And then, of course, Hunter Strickland, but we already talked about that, so he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. All right, so coming up, the Giants have 3 more against San Diego. This is a 4-game series over the weekend. This is one of those series they don't need to split. They need to win 3 out of 4, Eric. That's just plain and simple, and especially now because they won the first game. Now they need to win the next 2 out of 3, and they have to, especially after they came back losing 2 out of 3 from L.A. They won 2 out of 3 from Miami at home, but before that, 2 out of 3 in L.A. and 3 out of 4 in Miami, and that was just unacceptable, just totally unacceptable, especially the Miami series. So you got to make up for those inconsistencies in other places by doing things like 3 out of 4 from the Padres. You have to do that. So hopefully, they'll go ahead and do that and get above 500 and move on their way, because then they have 3 more against Colorado who come into town. So like you said, at the start of this home series with Miami, they have 20 out of the 26. So that's still, 16 out of their next 22 at home. So that's still a lot of games at home. And hopefully I'm going to be able to make it up there for a few of them. So anyway, the Giants are in a good place. They're not in the place we would really like them to be, but they're 4 games back, and they're coming into the end of June here. They've avoided, for the most part, a June swoon, a true June swoon, although there's still another week left of the season, or the month, so we never know what's going to happen. But hopefully they avoid the true June swoon, and then we head into July and the All-Star break. But I think that's all we have for you today, Eric, unless you had anything else.
No, I was just looking. They're 12-8 in June, so you said, it's going to be hard to have a June swoon. So far, this is their best month. They've already got more victories in June than they had in all of May. One more victory. Right, 1 more victory in June, and they'll match their April record. 3 more, and they'll match their March/April record.
Doesn't feel like that. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and they're 10-12 in 1-run games right now. But I was looking at the league, and everybody's kind of, aside from the Mariners, everybody's kind of around 500 when it comes to 1-run games, or worse.
Yeah, the expectation by default is 500, right, for 1-run games. So it's like, okay, fine. You attribute that to the blown save by Hunter Strickland the other night. It's like, all right, well, whatever. They're about 500. That's to be expected.
They're a 500 club, and they could be worse, but they can also get better.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's one of those seasons where you're like, okay, they're still with it, but they could be better. Okay, they're still with it, but they could be better. But those little losses, the blown saves, the no hit with 2 outs, the bases loaded and nobody out, you only get 1 run or no runs, the giving up 2 or 3 consecutive 2-out hits to the other team. There's all these little things that happen that seem small and somewhat inconsequential. But if it consistently happens, it quickly over the course of a year, let's just say it happens once a month. Just once a month.
6 games.
That's 6 games, right? 6 games. That's a 12-game swing in the standings. 12 games. So for everyone who thinks, oh, it's just a game. Oh, they just blew another one last week. It's just 1 game a week. No. These are the games that can make the difference between winning the division or getting the wild card. So, I think everybody needs to understand. It's like what Crash Davis used to say, just an extra base hit a week makes the difference between a 250 hitter and a 300
ground ball
hitter.
With eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's the sad thing about baseball, is that it seems inconsequential for 1 game or 1 at-bat or 1 strikeout or 1 hit. But if that in itself happens fairly regularly, and not every day, but once a week or once every 2 weeks or even once a month, it adds up. Just like your cable bill or taxes or whatever, right? You're like, it's only $10 for Netflix or whatever, and then you're like, oh my God, I spent $120 on Netflix the last year. It's just the way it is. That's the way baseball is. So the Giants need to cut down on those mistakes and hopefully, rein it in, because they need to, because they have the amazing position that they're in to be in a weak division. If they were in the Central or the East, they'd be toast right now. The fact is they're in the West, and the West is weak this year. So they're only 4 games back. So they have plenty of time, plenty of opportunity. And if they fail, it's not going to be because a juggernaut won 100 games in the West. It's going to be because they failed. So Giants have it all stacked in their favor, to be honest. And hopefully they take advantage of it. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for episode. I know. It's pretty much like, well, they're going to win it or shit their pants. Whatever.
Basically, the nice thing about it is it really feels like their season is in their hands.
Exactly.
Like you said, there's not some team that's a juggernaut and we have to hope they hit a wall. No, the season is in the Giants' hands. And I think this 20 of 26 at home will really give them a chance to point in that right direction. And then even after the All-Star break, like I said, they stay in the Western time zone, up until mid-August. So this is their chance to do something. And they're starting to show, they're showing signs of life. So it's good to see.
All right, so for Eric, this is Chad signing off for episode 145. You can find us on all of your normal podcast distribution sites, including iTunes and Stitcher and Podbean and Downcast and any other RSS feeder that you have. You can also find us on YouTube, where everything is automatically published. So basically, if you can't find us, you suck and you're not trying. You can also check us out, including our podcast, on torturecast.com. Follow us at torturecast or like us on Facebook. We'd really love if you visit us there. You can follow us individually, myself at ChadK21 and Eric at 2OutHits. That's with the number 2. So for Eric, this is Chad signing off for 145. We'll see you next week for 146. Until then, a boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.